Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Gigi Guzman, and I serve as the Chief Elections Commissioner for the 2023 general elections.
And my name is Aiden Powell, and I serve as an elections commissioner. Welcome to the first of two presidential and vice presidential debate of the 2023 general election. For those of you joining us in person or via YouTube, thank you for being here.
The presidential and vice presidential debates are an opportunity for candidates seeking the presidency to discuss issues and questions impacting the lives of students each day.
Additionally, these debates provide an opportunity to truly engage in discussion so that the voters know where each ticket stands.
In just a little bit, we will introduce each ticket, but first we want to go over how the debate is structured. Each ticket will have a 2-minute opening statement. Each statement will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and each ticket will have the opportunity to answer each question. After all tickets have answered the question, each ticket will have the ability to offer a minute rebuttal.
Taking time tonight is Zachary James, the Elections Commissioner of Rules and Regulations. And relating to time, any ticket that goes over time will be docked in the next round of questions. And finally, after all questions have been asked, at the end of the debate, each ticket will have 3 minutes to offer a closing statement.
We provided each ticket with the rules beforehand, as well as general topics that may be discussed this evening. Prior to the debate, an order was established, and how the tickets are seated is the order we will go in.
We will also provide an opportunity for those in the audience, both in person and on YouTube, to ask a question. If you're in person, Adela, the Elections Commissioner for Vince, is seated in the front and has slips of paper for you to write your question on. If you're joining us on YouTube, please insert your question in the comment box. Please note that we may not have time to get to each question.
All right, let's get started. We will begin with opening statements. Ticket number 1.
Good evening. My name is Iris O'Carey. I am a junior majoring in marketing and minoring in Spanish. I am running for student body president. Our slogan for our campaign is Level Up. Leveling up a student body addresses various factors that contribute to student success, as well as the quality of collaboration and addressing the learning environment. We are running on 5 points: transparency, civic engagement, diversity, retention, and accountability.
Hello, my name is Sophie Martins, and I am running alongside Iris O'Carey as her vice president. I'm a junior majoring in political science with a legal education accelerated degree. Of the 5 points of our platform, I will be mainly focusing on civic engagement and retention and making that my big priority to better unify the WSU community and make sure everyone has the best Shocker experience during their time here at WSU.
Thank you. Ticket 2.
Good evening, fellow students and university faculty. My name is Noah Carter, and beside me is my friend and running mate, Jonathan Stanger. And we are running for president and vice president of the Student Government Association. Our platform is 3 main points. We have connection, reachability, and advocacy. As students, we all have a voice and deserve to be heard. However, sometimes it can feel like our concerns and opinions are ignored. That's why I'm committed to being a bridge between the student body and university faculty. I want to ensure that every student has the opportunity to have their voice heard and their needs met. Being connected is more than just listening. It is about actively engaging with their student body. By fostering a sense of community, we can create a positive and inclusive school culture where every student feels valued and supported by their university, college, fellow students, and representatives. Another key component of our platform is reachability. I believe that every student should have easy access to their representatives. This includes tabling across campus and outside the main campus, talking to students one-on-one, and better advertising what SGA is and what they can do. As a student government representative, I will make sure that SGA does more than sit at a table or sit in our office, but rather we go to the students directly. Finally, advocacy is at the heart of our platform. I believe that it's important to stand up for what we believe in and what we think is right and fight for the issues that matter to us. Whether it's advocating for our student body, the most diverse in Kansas, and their issues, or promoting student-led initiatives. I'm committed to being a strong and effective advocate for our student community. In conclusion, we're running for student government president and vice president on a platform of connection, reachability, and advocacy. We believe that every student deserves a voice and that every student deserves to be represented, and that's why we're running.
Thank you. And ticket 3.
Hello, Shockers. My name is Zane Berry. I'm an aerospace engineering junior, and I'm running for president of this association. My running mate is Nick Harmon. He's a poli-sci major, and he's running for vice president. Our whole goal as a president and vice president is to be a speaker from the students for the students. We plan to put the students first above all else. With that in mind, we have what we call the winning strategy. W is to widen the freedom of expression on campus for students and faculty alike. I is for implementing sound financial policy in our organization to allow for organizations and students to be funded in the opportunities and the services that they need to thrive to be the things that we prioritize in our budget. And N is to negotiate the housing contracts on campus and the housing atmosphere to where it's more student-based, more flexible for the students, and it gives students the opportunity to feel like they're at home, to feel like they have a place to belong and to have a place where they can really thrive. With that in mind, we are prioritizing students above all else, and we believe it's the most important thing in our entire goal as president and vice president.
The first question for the evening is this. Each campaign has come forward with points that represent their respective vision. Can each campaign pick a point from your platform and elaborate on the steps you'll take to achieve it? We'll start with ticket 1.
I'm going to go with accountability. I think that we have a span of things that go on this campus that are not, we don't have accountable parties to. And there's things that are being tasked to do, but there's not somebody that's actually being held accountable. So holding people to the Shocker standard is something that we are taking into our campaign.
As for some specifics that we would be doing, I think that's definitely making one-on-one time with anyone who would be working with us, or making time with anyone who has concerns, whether that be students, faculty, staff members, administrators, and being able to meet with us so we can actually talk about what's going on and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, so the one I want to focus on is reachability. It's impossible for SGA to represent students that they don't know and that they never talk to. And so past administrations have definitely made efforts in this area to go and connect with students more and reach out to them, but there's still a lot of work to be done. One of the things that we've discussed is requiring our cabinet to spend at least 1 hour every week only going out and talking to students. They're not allowed to do office work, they're not allowed to sit in the office, they're not allowed to do anything except go out and one-on-one have conversations with students directly. Because like I said, you can't represent students that you don't know what their concerns are, you don't know what their needs are. We want to expand past just main campus. We want to do tabling and interactions on West Campus, across our different campuses, because we're not only representing main campus students, we're representing every fee-paying student at Wichita State University, and so our focus needs to be on every student and not just the ones that come to main campus.
We have also talked about increasing the amount of town halls, increasing the capacity of students coming and actually talking to us, and creating less in-person interactions for those that have a fear of coming in person and voicing their concerns.
Ticket 3.
Our biggest point is negotiating the housing policy and the housing contracts on campus. We have heard from many students, and this has even affected us in our relationships in some way. And so we just feel very passionately that this is something that needs to change, that flexibility needs to happen now, and that students need to have the ability, again, to, like I said, feel at home and feel like campus is a place where they want to be and not just a place where they have to stay for a year, but feel like they have the flexibility to be the best college student that they can be with their finances, with their structure in the classroom, and just generally in their social circles on campus.
And then I'd love to add to that a little bit of my own personal experience with housing at WSU. And of course, I understand that we need to have a program that's both beneficial for housing and students, for the university and students. But in my own personal experience, I really could have used a lot more flexibility in my housing contract. My first semester at WSU, I lived on campus, but then a plethora of reasons, including medical, I had to cancel my contract. And it cost thousands of dollars for me to just have it was a cancellation fee to get out of that contract. And so I think that we just need to bring these stories of individual students having problems with housing and actually bring them to housing and be advocates for those students to say that we can make these contracts more flexible and we can better represent the student population that way.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 1.
First of all, I'd like to say that we agree with what everyone is also fighting for. But a major thing that was talked about is making sure you're actually going out to students and knowing who they are. I personally have been going to first-year seminars just to make sure they understand what SGA is. And on average, every class I've gone to, there's maybe one person actually saying, yes, I know what it is, or I know at least someone involved. So as a senator, I've been able to do that. And by being a part of this platform along with Iris, we want to continue that and hopefully expand it a little bit more.
Ticket 2.
I would like to second the previous point. You know, I know that we have gone out and had talked to each individual public speaking classes, have gone out to algebra classes, have reached out to professors to speak in more classes in the upcoming 2 weeks. And I would like to say that also in terms of housing contracts and stuff like that, as I am a representative of the Housing Contracts Appeals Committee, and one of those issues that we do find is medical issues and stuff like that. And so I think one of the things that we need to focus on is increasing the awareness that you can appeal your contract fees, and you can reduce it from 50% all the way down all the way up to 100% to have no contract fee that when you do cancel it. And I think we need to increase the awareness of that system.
Ticket 3.
I think a lot of times, you know, we hear a lot about advocacy and about going out to students. Our campaign believes that's not really even something that we should promote, because that should just be a prerequisite. It should be something that all candidates are willing to do, and we know that personally we are already going to be fighting for those goals. So that shouldn't be even something that we have to promise. Our campaign knows that it's just a part of being a regular president or vice president. It's going out, making connections, and that isn't just what we're going to do, it's who we are, so much so that we don't even have to say anything about it.
Thank you all. So the second question is, how would you advocate for a minority community that you do not know much about? Ticket 2.
How would we do that? I would like to look at our history and what we have already been doing, not even in the positions that we are running for. We have reached out to the International Student Union. We have talked with the Thai, Lao, and Cambodian Association. We have already reached out to the Indian Student Association as well, and we have talked to the Paraguayan Society as well. Just not even being in these roles, we have taken steps to reach out. And I personally believe that one of the best ways that we can reach some of those populaces is through the use of RSOs and student organizations. And so that is why I've reached out to all 150 of the student organizations, asking for personal meetings to go talk to them about their issues. And already I have about a 3-page document of issues that I will be bringing into office for things to, for us to look at and fix.
Yeah, I'd add on to that that we're already doing that. And so I think the biggest thing when you are going to advocate for students who you don't know about is listening. Because if you don't listen to them, you're not going to know. One of the things that we did is we met with the Office of Adult Services and Online Learning. And when we met with them to discuss concerns, which the office can't even give an endorsement. So it was purely just to find out concerns for students. They said that in the entire time the director has been there, no SGA official has ever reached out to them to talk about student concerns, adult concerns, or online student concerns. So we're already walking the walk, we're living our talk, so yeah.
Thank you. Ticket 3.
I believe that the first step is to empower agencies in our association. We have a great tool to impact minority students and organizations that are outside of our wheelhouse, already established in the Student Government Association. So just really capitalizing on what's already there, giving those students and those groups the things that we can and resources and help and listening and working with those students from all different kinds of backgrounds to make the best campus for Wichita State University.
And I think overall that can be summarized by just creating an atmosphere where we can empower every individual, regardless of their identity, regardless of their background, to make sure that everyone can feel welcome and at home at WSU, and especially like prioritizing those agencies to give them the independence they need to be able to reach those communities better than we could as just simply individuals, but give them all the tools that they need, that they can do, that they can act on those as well, and then just be there as a supporting role as well.
Thank you. And ticket 1.
I think overall, when you don't know a student population and you want to better represent them, you have to go to them and you have to ask them, educate yourself first before you can advocate for them. See what they're at, meet them where they are. Don't assume that they're going to come to you. You need to meet them where they are. And yeah, do you have anything?
Thank you. We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 2.
We have none.
Ticket 3.
We have none either.
And ticket 1.
I would just like to shed the light on the comments made toward the agencies. I think that it's a great idea that the agencies are a thing and we have 7 identity-based in our governing. We're governing 7 of them. So I think that it's great that the 7 of them kind of all oversee other organizations underneath them that also align, and it just creates a huge community. And that's what I want to say.
Our next question, how can you ensure that all viewpoints are respected on campus, even those that may be unpopular? Ticket 3.
Our goal is to advocate for the students in this way by talking to university administration and making it the brand of Wichita State to be the free speech campus and the campus that promotes all sorts of viewpoints that are nonviolent, of course, and so we can have this ecosystem of support while also having something that might challenge you a little bit. And so just allowing there to be a bigger influence, and again, making it a part of the Wichita State brand to have your views, but to also have them have views against you. And it's just working on yourself, figuring out who you are at our university, and becoming the best person you can be.
And I think to add on to that, I just, whenever this issue comes up, it reminds me of a quote from Voltaire, that I may disagree with what you have to say, but I would die for your right to say it. Because it doesn't matter if what I think is right, it doesn't matter what you think is right, it matters that we're all able to have our own opinions, we're all able to have this culture of free speech. And that's what we need to foster at WSU. We need to foster in every American university, and every university around the world, is that we need a culture of freedom of speech, where even though we disagree, we can work together. And in fact, I love working with people who disagree with me, I love having conversations with people who disagree with me, so we need to promote a culture of freedom of speech, where we can all have disagreements, but still work together and still be a part of the same Shocker family.
Ticket 1.
So with this regarding freedom of speech, our university does have a freedom of speech committee that does meet to make sure that our university is actually meeting the requirements of whatever that looks like on our campus. And I think that's amazing. And being able to look at what that actually entails and making sure that we're still uplifting that and upholding that, whatever that means on this campus, would be great. When it comes to working with a team, I don't think we would ever want to have everyone that says, yes, I agree with that idea and doesn't see another point of view of it. We would always want to have someone, at least one person there. Hopefully everyone at the table has a different perspective and different viewpoint and something else to say so they can add to whatever we're trying to reach. Because at the end of the day, we're all Shockers and we are unified in that one area, but we're also all very unique. So we're all going to have different things to say and different perspectives, and being able to give an opportunity for everyone to say that is what we're striving for.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, I think anyone that knows me knows that I am opinionated, but I think one thing to remember is that you can't expect to have your opinions heard unless you're willing to hear out other people's opinions. And so that's a struggle that every person has, right? When you hear something that contradicts what you think or what you believe, it's sometimes hard to accept that their opinion's just as valid. But I do subscribe to the view of representation that the people you're representing, their opinions matter more than your personal opinion. And so if who I'm representing comes to me and they say, hey, this needs to happen, this is why it needs to happen, and they can back that up and they can show me why that needs to happen, then ultimately that's more important than whatever I think, because I was put in office by them. And so I think it's important to remember that our roles here are not to always serve our interests, it's to serve the interests of the students.
We will now open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 3.
I would like to also emphasize that even though we're being elected by the students for the students, our guide on free policy, or not free policy, free speech and what we want to do with that also extends to faculty and teachers alike. They should be able to speak their opinions and have those opinions heard by students, but yet there needs to be a level of separation between the classroom and then what their views are too. But we should always emphasize that our university is an American university, and that means freedom of speech for everyone, students and teachers alike.
Ticket 1.
I just want to include that I believe that diverse perspectives really accentuates the improvement needed on campus and shows how we can grow and be so much more.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, I would just like to second the Voltaire quote. Something that I have always grown up with and something that I hold true to my heart is that we may disagree, but I can still go home and treat you like a friend. I can still go home and love each and every one of you. And so I think that there is a difference of healthy debate and arguments. And that is something that I want to be bringing into the presidency, is that we are having healthy debate and not just bickering for the sake of bickering. And so I would also like to extend that to the student populace as well, and making sure that all students feel safe voicing their concerns and voicing their opinions.
All right, and the next question, how would you and your administration support the efforts of WSU becoming a Hispanic Serving Institute? Ticket number 1.
Recently, I've had conversations with one of our agencies that oversees all the Hispanic organizations, which is Hispanic American Leadership Organization, and they've grown so much in the past couple of years, especially this year with having a rocky start of not having anyone to having a full exec. I got to speak with them and figure out what they actually are doing for the campus. And one thing that they do is a Si Se Puede Day, which has the surrounding high schools come to WSU and they do a show, be a shocker before you're a shocker kind of thing. And I think that that is amazing with us turning into a Hispanic, an HSI. I think that we're growing opportunities for all the communities that are around us.
Thank you. Ticket 2.
Yeah, so I remember a very similar question from last year, so I'm happy to see it asked again. And I think it's important as WSU moves towards a Hispanic serving institution that we don't just act like we are, like we don't just say that we are, right? We actually serve the student body that we have. And so one of the things, I recently came back from an orientation conference, and UTSA, who is a Hispanic serving institution, one of the things they do during orientations specifically is they have more opportunities for those who don't speak English or who don't come from the same background. And that's one thing that I'd like to work with our offices on campus, is giving more of a initial welcome to those students who might be coming from a place in their lives where they don't know everything that's going on, right? And so having more experiences catered specifically towards those students to better help them integrate into Wichita State, and to better help students at Wichita State accept those identities and communities, so that it doesn't have to be a, hey, you're not a white student, so you have to become like us. It's a, hey, we can both work together to come to a place of understanding and agreement. So.
Ticket 3.
Well, one thing I would like to say is that I've always been a strong believer in equality of opportunity, and I think that something that we can promote is making sure that people who say maybe English isn't their first language, maybe Spanish is their first language, maybe they don't even speak English, we need to make sure that we have multiple language options for everything we have in the university. I know we have a lot of different language options for lots of things, but we need to make sure that everything we have has multiple language options, and I think this is a big part of it, just making sure that everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of where they're coming from, and I think especially an Hispanic background, that we can promote equality of opportunity for those large populations in this country and abroad. And I think that that's just a big priority, is making sure that everything is accessible to everyone, regardless of their background.
And going off of that, our campaign believes that it is really important to bring upon, I guess, challenges to one another. You know, we think that, in this way, becoming a Hispanic serving institution, we can give students more of an opportunity to be in a more diverse environment, to get to meet new people, and to understand, I guess, another point of view and another aspect of life. So just meeting the students where they are and then bringing them together is really what being a Shocker is all about.
Thank you. We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 1.
I would like to just mention that WSU is on track to this, and it is on track to become an HIS no matter what. So that's really going down into what we have currently at WSU, like agencies like Halo, and making sure that they have the resources that they need to be successful with the growing Hispanic population, not necessarily just at WSU, but in the Wichita area in general. So I think that we could continue the working with Newman and Friends and their SGA to hopefully better support Hispanic students in Wichita.
And I'd also add that I think that it's very important to make it more inclusive, and by seeing people that look like you, really create some type of attachment to the university. So by the university hiring people of color to make that comfort for the students, it kind of gives a sense of belonging.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, I think on top of all of the things that were said today, I think also one of the major benefits that we should bring into office is Wichita State University is not the only one in this scenario, and we should also be reaching out to colleges in Oklahoma, colleges in Texas, and reaching out to them and see how they are already in these wonderful positions, and we should be able to take the opportunity to learn from them so that we can support our own campus as best as we already have using their experience.
Ticket 3.
Like it was stated before, really our biggest goal is to meet these people where they are and to be forthcoming about what we're planning to do to really be the best Hispanic serving institution that we can be. So doing the groundwork now, and so we don't wake up one day and we say, oh, we don't have these certain resources that are needed by these students, and really making sure that we lay the groundwork today to make a brighter future for tomorrow.
Our next question, what cabinet positions would you add to your term to improve SGA? Ticket 2.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been planning since August when we decided to run is an international affairs director. There's been talk of doing that this administration, and that's great. But if that does not happen, then we definitely like to fill out that role. And then one thing that came up when we were talking to different organizations is that one single international affairs director does not have the experience of every international student, and so allowing them to, however that position works out, but allowing them to have some sort of group that they can go to and talk about what the needs are from all international students and not just the portion that they represent. So yeah, new cabinet position, definitely an international affairs director.
Ticket 3.
For our campaign, we think it's really important to not really increase the amount of cabinet positions that are available, but really support the ones that are there already. For example, for the student advocate positions, we want to give those students the resources that they need, the backing that they need from us being president and vice president, and again, the support that they need to do their job the best that they can. These students are mostly the ones that do the most work for students, of course, being the advocates. And so giving them the tools that they need and the ability to do the best that they can do is something that's really important to us in working with students in that way.
Ticket 1.
So this is probably going to sound a little redundant. We would definitely want to be supporting the cabinet members who are already in position, just making sure that they have all the resources that they need to finish the goals that they aspire to achieve, and making sure that they're posting their office hours so they can be accessible to students and that everyone knows what they're doing. And then
Also redundant, but I also would love to add a international affairs position because we have a huge population, like 20% of our population is international students, and I feel like there's a lot that goes on within, just by talking to students that are international students, that there's just so many things that are restricted due to the law and et cetera, but also making sure that they are a represented population because they spent all that money to come here, to get the education, to get the opportunity that America has, and I believe that they should be treated just like a domestic student.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 2.
There we go. On top of creating the International Affairs Council, which I believe should run similarly to how the Student Organizations Council is with their director on top, I believe that also what I would personally bring into creating this cabinet is making sure that we have a solid base of our cabinet members, as well as public relations and media, because coming from a media arts background, I think that a lot of issues that past administrations have seen is not fully understanding how the media realm works, and creating a flyer doesn't happen within a day. It is a thought process that, you know, takes a long time and takes a lot of forethought. And so on top of enhancing the already cabinet members, as well as creating the International Affairs Council.
Ticket 3. Ticket 1.
along with having an international affairs director, someone who would else be on our cabinet, we'd also want to make sure that they're actively working with the international student office, just to make sure that there's no lack of communication there and that everyone's on the same page.
SGA has had some issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion. How will you appeal to a diverse set of constituencies in an honest, respectful, and inclusive manner? Ticket 3.
Again, it all comes down to listening to students and really hearing their concerns. It's one thing if you say that you're going to be fighting for these people, but you don't know what they need, what they're looking for, or even what they're all about. So our campaign is looking to interact with these communities to make sure that we're giving them the resources that they need to let them know that they have a seat at the table, and giving them, again, just a chance to know that they're shockers, they should be treated like everybody else, and they should have a space for them.
And if I can point to my career so far as a senator, I did co-sponsor legislation that was a condemnation of anti-Semitism. And I think that one thing that we could do is just make sure that every community, regardless of their background, always knows that they are welcome and that they are supported by the student government.
Thank you. Ticket 1.
I think diversity efforts, we have so many different diversity efforts on this campus. They're just not working together. They're not marrying one another. Recently, we just hired a new Office of Diversity and Inclusion Director, and I've had the ability to meet with him, and I can tell that he is very passionate about what he's doing, and I think that he's going to turn a lot around of what we've got going at the university. I mean, we have a DEI plan that's 17 pages that is supposed to be for DEI efforts, but I honestly feel like they're just check boxes. I feel like we're not getting updated on them, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to the students and holding people accountable, as one of our platforms is. Do you have anything? All right.
And ticket 2.
Yeah, so I'd say it shouldn't be a struggle to have a diverse campus. That's not something that you should have to work hard for. It should be something that comes naturally, right? Like you should, if you're finding yourself in the place where you're saying, well, we're not diverse enough, we're not reaching those diverse populations, then you've almost already failed in that sense, because that should be something that we just naturally do. And so when we talk about having those strong DEI efforts and including the students from across campus, I think it's important to, like was said, listen to students. And you should be listening to students before you're in a role where you're required to listen to students. That should be something that you're already accustomed to doing. It should be something that you're already ready to do. Yeah.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 3. Ticket 1 and ticket 2.
Our next question. Can you explain what SGA does from your perspective as a student? Ticket 1.
So, yes, I can. This is something, what I mentioned earlier about meeting with first year seminars, just explaining what SGA does as a general basis. And big overall thing is that we do a lot of general advocacy work. And I know we've talked a lot about being advocates on campus means that you have to actually go out and talk to students and everything like that. If you just read SGA website, it talks a lot about how we do general advocacy work. We do, there are a lot of people who genuinely strive for that accomplishment. And I think some people may just not understand exactly what they're signing up for. Maybe we need to be a little bit more transparent about that when it comes to SGA. So going forward with that, I think it's just continuing that advocacy work in SGA and specifically in the executive branch, making sure that the legislative branch are actually talking to their constituents and representing the students.
I also think that SGA could really improve on the promotion side of it. I feel like our website could be updated, as well as just letting students know by seeing different types of promotions, as besides just talking, but just when things are in your face, the marketing, you are more appealed to look at it and more appealed to figure out what you're looking at, whether it's a sticker, whether it's a link, whether it's a QR code.
Ticket 2.
So every time I explain SGA to anyone, I always make it a habit to talk about how we're not like your student government in high school, right? We don't just go to teachers and say, hey, we'd really like some better toilet paper, please, right? We have a lot of ability to make change on this campus, and I think that's a reason why students don't interact with us as much as we would like them to. It's because they don't realize that SGA actually can help improve their student life and wants to help improve their student lives for the most part. And so I try to emphasize that SGA is different than they might have experienced in the past, and it's even different than other universities. And then I try to talk about how kind of the role that SGA does have to represent students, right? We are the voice of the students to the university. And so while on your own, you can go to a faculty member, or you can talk to the president and say, hey, we want this to happen. It carries much more weight when the entire force of the student body is behind you saying, we want this to happen and we need this to happen.
Ticket 3.
Well, I just have to second what both tickets have, or I guess third, what both tickets have said so far about advocacy. Everyone I know in student government has some issue that is very important to them, and how that they feel that they need to advocate for, and that's something that everyone in student government shares, and so that's the first thing I always tell people about student government, is that we advocate for the issues that are affecting the student body. Me personally, I try always to advocate for student organizations. As Ways and Means Chair, I feel like I have a vested interest in making sure that student organizations policy is as good for student organizations as it possibly can be. On every piece of legislation, I always say, how is this going to affect student organizations? How am I going to protect student organizations? How am I going to make sure that student organizations' interests are being promoted right here? And I think that that general idea of advocacy is something that we need to consider all of the opinions and the ideas of the people who are coming into the student government have to say, and because they're all advocating for a different issue that different students have been affected by. And so that's ultimately, I think, the biggest thing about student government, is that we advocate for the issues of the student body.
I think funding is also a very important part about what makes our student government special, just in and of itself. I believe that we're one of very, very few in the entire country who has as much of an effect over student fees as we do. We allocate millions of dollars in student fees every single year. So just using our voice and our influence for the students to get things that are needed by the students. Again, we're talking about organizational funding, individual funding, and other things like that.
We will open the floor for a brief rebuttal in order. Ticket 1. Ticket 2. Ticket 3.
What is something that you liked about this past session that you would like to take into your session? Ticket 2.
My bad. One of the things that we're really passionate about carrying on is the menstrual products initiative that happened under the Kirk administration. I had the privilege of being able to be on the committee that made that happen, and it was a really nice experience being able to work with Focus and students outside of SGA to get their opinions on what was happening. And I think that continuing the menstrual products initiative, but also continuing that connection with people outside of SGA is really important, and not just sticking to only SGA people, but reaching out and including people outside of SGA into the process.
Ticket 3.
From the moment I stepped foot into the SGA, this is, of course, my first year in SGA. I remember when now President Kirk was running for speaker, one of the issues that he ran on was transparency. And when I heard that, the second I heard him say transparency, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to vote for him for speaker, because I strongly believe in that. And this has been a theme of President Kirk's administration, is that transparency is something that is extremely important, and we've tried to keep that going in the Student Senate as he's moved to the executive branch. And I feel like that is an overall goal that we should always strive for, and we should always strive to achieve. And so if there's anything that I want to continue from the Kirk administration, is that how he has fought so hard for transparency, and we would like to continue that in ours.
And Ticket 1.
We definitely would also like to continue the free menstrual products on this campus, and we would also really like to continue working with the Shocker Support Locker. As an employee of the Shocker Support Locker, I get to experience on a day-to-day basis how many people are actually using the locker and the lives that you see change. So we definitely want to keep an impact on that, especially with rising food insecurity on our campus.
We will open the floors to rebuttals in order. Ticket 2.
So one of the things that I think was really inspiring this year, especially with all of the turmoil that happened over the past year in SGA, is that when President Kirk did come in to office, he was very dedicated to getting things done. And even though he didn't want to run for president, even though he didn't want to be in that presidency, he still gave everything he had to the student body and getting goals out quickly, making sure those of us in cabinet knew what we wanted to do and knew what we were going to do. And so I really admire that, and I hope that if we're elected, we would be able to carry that out through our entire administration of always having a plan and making sure that those in our cabinet know what we want to do and what is going to happen.
Ticket 3.
I think really another important thing that I've recognized in this past year of Senate that we kind of want to influence when we're in the executive branch is a feeling of professionalism. I feel that this semester and this session especially, this current one, has been very, very successful. The amount of professionalism we have. We're able to take in students' voices and other senators' voices. We're able to analyze that, and then we're able to come up with a result, either passing a bill or forfeiting a bill or having some unit of discussion. This has been something that in my other year in Senate I didn't see very much of. So I would like to take that kind of feeling of professionalism and that feeling of allowing students' voices and senators' voices to be heard in the chambers, and we're going to make that an important deal.
And ticket 1.
I'm sorry, will you repeat the question really quickly? Oh yeah, it's rebuttal. Oh my goodness. So sorry. I think definitely continuing along with the professionalism in that sense and making sure that SGA is held to a certain standard and continued with that. And something that I know I have really liked about working with John Kirk is that when you're on a one-on-one conversation with him, he's very informal with you and you can be yourself around him. And I think that's something that we want to continue, especially when talking to students.
The next question, what sets your campaign apart from both your opponents and the previous administration? Ticket 3.
Tangibility. I believe our goals are the most on the ground and ready to go. I think that we can start our goals and expectations for our administration day one in a way that that the other two campaigns cannot. In that way, I think that really all it takes for us is the first step, right? We know what we have, everything's set in stone. We just need to do the job after we get into position, and we're very ready to do that.
Ticket 1.
I think something that sets Sophie and I aside from our other opponents is the fact that we are we're running, basically. We have the fire behind us that I think, will ignite some type of movement, like our campaign logo is Level Up. So I think that by leveling up, we want to make something shake, we want to make some things happen. And for me personally, I don't take no as a no. If the front door is not open, I'm going to try the back. Do you have anything to say?
Ticket 2.
I think the major thing that sets us apart is our preparedness. We've been planning to run for student government president since August, so that's about 7 months now. So I respectfully disagree that we are not prepared to enact our policies on day one. We have every step of our policies laid out and what we want to do. I'd also say that our experiences as transition mentors allow us to be a representative for the student body that I'm not going to say we haven't seen before, but that isn't present here. We have either indirectly or directly talked to almost every freshman on this campus through our roles as TMs and heard those concerns that they face, especially continuing into the first semester with the mentoring that we did. And so I think that awareness of the concerns of the students that are coming in and then our preparedness of knowing what we've been going to do for almost the entire duration of the school year.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 3. Ticket 1.
I would also like to say that if we are elected day one, we can start the platform that we have, especially looking at civic engagement and retention. That comes a lot with just getting people involved and just making sure that RSOs are actively reaching out to students and making sure that they feel at home and that they can find a place where they connect with someone rather than just being a shocker. And increasing the accountability and diversity on our campus is something that we've been working on for forever. Before we decided that we were going to do this, we were going to do it no matter what.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, I think leading into some of our transition mentor upbringings and what we have gone through is that every transition mentor is trained to know quite basically every inch of campus. We're trained to know every resource, we're trained to know every opportunity, we're trained to know everything about everyone, more or less. We are trained to be the gateway from freshmen to going into this new college life where previously we don't know what their home life was, but we do know that we should set the standard of what their college freshman life should be. As well as, on top of knowing all of that, we are sent to leadership conferences. This most recent one was in San Antonio, Texas, where we have went and talked to colleges in Texas and said, what was your experiences? What did you do in SGA? What did you do as a leader? What are you doing on your campus so that we can bring that here to this campus?
Are there specific initiatives that you would implement if elected to strengthen SGA's role as a speaker for students? Ticket 1. Are there specific initiatives that you would implement if elected to strengthen SGA's role as a speaker for students?
I definitely think looking over in our Constitution currently, we have these agencies that kind of oversee different student populations. I think going in and revising and restructuring how agencies are looked at and what they necessarily mean, because organizationally they oversee a ton of different RSOs that fall under the category of that identity. So I would definitely say that one off the head would be restructuring how agencies are being looked at and educating students on what they actually are on campus.
I'd also like to add for the legislative branch to senators, what does it mean to be a senator, and how much work do you think that goes into actually representing your constituents?
Ticket 2.
I think one of the ones that I am most passionate about is creating the Registered Student Organizations Bill of Rights. Right now, we have student rights that RSOs are basing off of what their rights are. And personally, I think that that's just not right. That's not proper. I want to create a Registered Student Organizations Bill of Rights so that we can help encourage registered student organizations, so that we can empower RSOs, so that we can help RSOs be the best that they can be, because of situations that have occurred just in my time being in SGA. I find it that why did they not have a simple defense for say the university controlling registered student organizations when RSOs should be controlled by students. They should be ran by students, and they should be encouraged by students, and they should empower students.
Really quickly, a specific one is working with the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance. A lot of times students file Title IX reports and they don't hear back very quickly. They never know if anything happened. And also a lot of students don't even know that they have that option. So working with them to increase that knowledge and allow students to be more easily access those resources that they have, and then also making sure that the SGA website stays updated reliably and includes when our cabinet will be in office and when they're going to be doing things. I think sometimes it's very hard for students to connect to SGA when they don't have that immediate gateway of the website to inform them.
And ticket 3.
An initiative that we have, I'd say that's probably more unique than any of the others, is probably our free speech initiative. We want to go to the students and say, hey, even if you don't agree with us, even if you don't agree with your peers or your professors, we want you to feel comfortable being able to share what you have to say, share what opinions you have. We want to advocate for the ideas of saying that, yeah, even minority opinions should be protected. Even if you aren't in the plurality or majority opinion, you should still be protected. And this same thing also would go for professors, saying your professor, we want to work with faculty senate to say, hey, if you were feeling scared to share an opinion that you have about your personal life or something, we want you to make sure that you still feel comfortable being able to express yourself. Going to students, holding events to say, yeah, you are allowed to have an opinion. You are allowed to think differently. You are allowed to be yourself. You are allowed to have that individuality that so often people are scared to express.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 1. Ticket 2. And ticket 3.
How will you work to bring the WSU community together when racial bias, discrimination, and hate speech divide us? Ticket 2.
Yeah, so this will probably be repeating a lot of what has already been said already, but educating yourself on various cultures and identities is your responsibility. And so making that first move to know what those communities need and what those communities want is important if we're going to relieve any tension. It's very easy to hate someone that you know nothing about, but once you start learning about them, that ability to hate them goes away because you realize, oh, these are people just like me. These are people that have needs just like me, and these are people that have wants just like me. And so taking that initiative to go out and learn about people and learn about what their identity is and what they need is really important. I think that it's impossible to have an inclusive campus if you don't have a knowledgeable campus.
Ticket 3.
It's really giving students the resources to get to branch out of their comfort zones, to get to learn something new. In our capacity, we're going to be working with the administration as a whole to emphasize the amount of events that are happening to inform students about different kind of cultures. Again, if they don't ever have the opportunity to learn these things or to meet new people or to even have a idea of that's something that they should be doing, broadening their ideas about the world. That's something that we need as the Wichita State student government. That's what we need to bring to the students. That's what we need to make as important to, again, our Wichita State brand and who we are as Shockers, a community that's together and knows each other in their communities.
Ticket 1.
I think education is first, number one, making sure that everyone knows what is around them. But I also think it goes into the trainings that we are forced to do. Every staff and faculty member has to go through, I believe, every year or every 2 years has to do bias and discrimination training. I also think it goes to the departments that are in charge of these things, whether it's Title IX, the Berg, which I sit on, or the discrimination or conduct. We have so many different reported links to go to report things to, but I feel like the training also needs to start with us educating to the students.
I'd just like to add that as a political science major, even in classrooms, you see it whenever there's supposed to be healthy political debate, and oftentimes it ends up turning into a little bit of a screaming match. While that does happen, you have to respect that this is a safe place to do it, which is I find amazing, and that's why I really like being a political science major, is I can find people who are so passionate about something that I may not necessarily agree with, but I can at least listen to them and try and understand their point of view.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 2.
Yeah, so I think one important thing is that I do agree that SGA should be involved in more events to educate students and to include students. But I do want to say that SGA is not an event organization necessarily, and so instead of always taking that responsibility of having those events by ourselves, we should look to organizations that already exist and groups that already exist, and instead of taking that responsibility upon ourselves to always do those, pair with the people that already exist and are already trying to do that fight and heighten their voices instead of only heightening ours.
Ticket 3.
I'd just like to say that I'm really glad to hear that there's a lot of common themes among each of the candidates here about educating, about how I think one of the greatest things about modern universities is that you can see so many different kinds of people, so hear different kinds of things, and experience different cultures. And that's one of the greatest things about a university is that you broaden your horizons that way. And it's a common theme among all of our tickets that education is a way that we can solve this issue and promote this good goal. And so I just say that I'm very happy to see that we can all share in that very great thing about the modern American university.
Ticket 1.
I would also like to add that I think as a student government, just tying off of what you were saying, I think as a student government, we look to students to kind of do that education, but you have to have the relationship with the students already for you to even have the ability to ask them. So if it's a recognized student organization that you're trying to highlight or you're trying to get educated on, make sure you have that relationship with that student organization before you're just asking. Otherwise, it could come off offensive that you're asking, hey, can you come teach me about this? Or can you educate me on why I need to say this or this needs to look like this?
A question from an audience member. In what ways and to what extent do you plan to engage with the groups and organizations at Wichita State? SGA governs all of these communities, yet we rarely see any engagement/interaction from them. Ticket 3.
I think something that we should, and that I know that we're going to really emphasize in our administration, is the fact that all registered student organizations can ask for funding. And that is something that they should really make sure that they're doing. I feel like a lot of student organizations know that they're student organizations. They emphasize and use a lot of the other abilities that student organizations have, but sometimes I feel like the funding aspect is underutilized and should be used by more student organizations so they have some more money to use to benefit the people that are in those organizations and the people that hold the identities that those organizations sponsor.
And just to add on that, working as Ways and Means Chair, I've seen so many different student organizations come through this year, and a lot of times I think, wouldn't it be great if we had more opportunities for student organizations to collaborate, not just with student government, but also with each other. So I think that student government can be perhaps like a platform that can say, hey, if you're a part of an organization that's of this type of category, why don't you do things together? Why don't you have events together? And so I think just promoting that awareness that, hey, there are other student organizations that are similar to you. Why don't you do events in collaboration? And so I think that role as just being something that sort of unites all these student organizations, how they're all through student government, we can say, hey, we can be a way that you can also work together.
Ticket 1.
Again, I would like to reiterate with marketing and promotion. I think if students were to know that student government, what it is, and see it all the time, I think that it would be more helpful and more accessible to people. I think in cabinet already, they do monthly or bi-weekly meetings with RSOs, and RSO presidents are allowed to visit this space and kind of talk to President Kirk about all their struggles and how we can better represent them, I'm pretty sure. Also, in my time as DEI chair, I've gotten to meet with a ton of students just by tabling downstairs in the RSC. Monthly, we do a Let's Talk About It series where every month it's a different theme, anything from Black history to when campus gives you tricks, we give you a treat, just ways for us to be seen and let students know that we are here.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, I think coming from where I am currently in SGA, which is the Student Organizations Council Director, which is what you were talking about earlier, is that one of the main things that I've wanted to install into student organizations is more collaboration and more synergy. That's why in a few weeks, while we're hosting RSO Week, a lot of those events are going to be collaborations and not just singular things. And so bringing into the candidacy, one of the things that I would like to change is I would like to empower the Student Organizations Council Director to have more of a position to allow student organizations to collaborate and give us the ability to synergize with them a lot more. And, you know, just this past year, I think we've doubled the attendance of the Student Organizations Council as it was last year. It is still a relatively new position, but I would like to see that go even further than what I've been able to do in this position currently.
So one of the things that we found when we were talking to students preparing for our campaign, when we met with Alpha Phi, other than their members that are already in SGA, only one of their members knew anything about SGA other than its name. And so that's not on their fault, that's our fault. And we need to be better about that, because we can't expect organizations to come to us with their issues or to come to us when they want to do something if they don't even know what we do.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 3. Ticket 1. And Ticket 2.
What purpose do you think agencies serve on campus? Ticket 1.
Man, that word agency has been thrown around. I think that agencies serve as a head of like a community that I believe the presidents in that organization and their exec kind of oversee everything that goes underneath it with that identity base. I think that they do such great work, and we're always calling them out, but we're not really doing anything to see what they need. We're not asking them what their needs are. And again, I just really think that restructure needs to be done, and make it more about the students, and remind ourselves that they are students that are running those agencies, as well as the coordinators and the facilitators.
I would also just like to add that the agencies are a great way that we can help out with that civic engagement and retention point that we have on our platform, because it's a way to find your home other than just WSU in general. You can find your identity-based agency, and then underneath that find some RSOs that you may be interested in.
Ticket 2.
So if you look in the bylaws, when a organization becomes an agency, it says that the agency ceases to be an organization and has no differentiable identity from the student government. That's paraphrasing. So I think that the agency's roles is the exact same as the student government's. The agency role is just like the student government, to represent the students that they are over and represent the students that are a part of that community. And I think that you're right, SGAs do get dogged on a lot, but they do an important job. And you know, for every great thing that an organization does, the agency is right there doing another great thing, or even more great things, just because of their position and ability to do so. So agencies are really important, and yeah.
Ticket 3.
So I'd just like to talk about how, like, the student government, we've talked a lot about how advocacy is a big part of the student government, and agencies being a part of the student government. They each have a specific type of advocacy that they oversee. And so we need to work to better define what their roles can be, make sure that they can be as independent as they need to be, as they want to be able to empower them to do everything that they want to do, everything that they need to do, to make sure that the advocacy groups that they are supporting and that they are can properly utilize what they had been theorized to be able to do. Because I know that they're still relatively new, but if we can just work to better define their roles, work to better promote them, to empower them to be able to advocate for those issues that they're entrusted to do.
To put it simply, agencies are a bridge and a platform to minority students. And like Nick said, it is our duty, and it should be our duty, to focus these, again, bridges and platforms for minority students to be focused on the students, to make sure that the students have the say, and to make sure that it's actively fighting for and protecting students in which they're supposed to serve.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 1. Ticket 2.
So on the topic of agencies, an agency that I would like to see is one related to Jewish heritage and Jewish cultural, the Jewish culture. I think there were some issues that this year, and I don't think it falls on a single person or anything, but I would like to see that in the future, to give that voice to our Jewish students, especially with, in our world, we see a lot of anti-Semitism on the rise, and even in the university there have been some instances, so I'd like to see that happen.
Ticket 3.
I would just like to second the point that that Noah Carter just made. I co-sponsored the legislation to, it was a resolution to essentially request that the university, or suggest the idea that we create a Jewish student agency for those exact reasons that you described. And so I'd just like to say that we fully support that effort as well.
If you had a blank check to go towards the university, what would you use or write it for? Ticket 2.
Free therapy for all students.
Personally, I would like to, let me start over. Food insecurity is a huge issue, not only on our campus, not only in the area, but around the world. And I would like to see students be able to not worry about having to find where their next meal is, find where their next source of food is at all. And so I think the Shocker Support Locker is doing a great job there. And I think that they're helping a lot of students, but with a blank check, I would probably try to help them out as much as possible.
Ticket 3.
I would say individual funding would be the thing that I would write my blank check to. Providing students the opportunity to, whether they're advancing their career, they're going to fairs, they're going to different meetups and places where they have to be to advance what they're trying to do. As students here, we are actively, and Wichita State has a great opportunity to get you into where you need to be for your career and your professional achievements before you even step foot out of college. So giving students the opportunity to wherever they want to go for their individual needs and for their academic development, to just be able to send them there for free, I mean, that would be amazing to give to students.
Then also, in my personal belief, I've noticed that, especially among our generation, Generation Z, mental health services are uniquely important. So personally, if I had a blank check, I would want to make sure that all of our mental health services are as fully funded as possible, to make sure that every student gets every resource they need to assure that they are in the best mental health that they can be.
Ticket 1.
So we would probably write the blank check out to the Shocker Support Locker. Like I said, as being there, I can see on a day-to-day basis how many people actually are using it as a viable resource to them. And when it comes to what would actually be done with that check, I think right now, because you can't really talk about the location being moved since the Student Success Center is being built currently on campus, and that is where the new Shocker Support Locker will be going. Extending the hours would be amazing. And whether that be hiring more students and increasing student pay for employers, or hitting that civic engagement mark of having a better volunteerism community with that, because there is training you have to go through for the Shocker Support Locker. And if we could just extend that, that'd be amazing.
I also would say more money to the International Student Office, as their resources to international students are just not what they could be. So make it easier on international students. So like I said before, treat them, we should all be at the same standard of being like a domestic student.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 2.
I'd like to congratulate Nicholas Harmon for bringing up mental health. Especially coming out of COVID, Fine Arts has noticed one of the biggest issues that we are currently experiencing is a mental health crisis. And that is why I'll use this little platform to say this. If you are a fine arts student, if you bring your CAPS bill to the Fine Arts department, they will reimburse you, because that has been a big issue for all fine arts students, and I want to see our other colleges supporting this initiative as well.
Tagging on to what was said earlier, international students definitely could use that support. I think specifically in the area of housing, I know personally several friends that I have, they had a really hard time finding housing in the area, whether it be for financial reasons or just lack of availability. And so if we had the ability to give money to the university for a specific thing, I'd say international housing would also be a great thing to do.
Ticket 3.
I would like to say that international student services are also a thing that we would increase with that blank check as well. Just because, I mean, we know that in being a international student, there are caps on the amount of hours that you can work. And there are different kind of things that allow you to not be able to work as much as you like, or to not be able to get as far as you need in certain aspects of your education. So just giving those students a little bit of financial support in that way would allow them to not have to think so hard about working, and instead be able to focus on their studies and what else they have to do while being students here at Wichita State.
Ticket 1.
Along with struggles with international students, finding a job after college can sometimes be really hard. So being able to give more money into Baby Shocker Career Accelerator, working specifically with international students to be able to better prepare them for what it is like to be a part of the workforce in a country that they're not from, would definitely help out.
As well as every international student needs a sponsor, and that sponsorship program that the international office has currently is kind of weakening. So kind of, if that check could go towards that, it would be hiring more sponsors, getting them better jobs on campus, supplying them things that they're needing in their day-to-day necessities that we get the privilege to have just because we're domestic students.
A question from the audience. What could you do to better support the LGBTQ+ community, more importantly, the transgender community, due to a recent legislation passed within this country and state? Ticket 3.
I feel like really it just comes down to supporting all students. I feel like oftentimes we can kind of get put into a box of, you know, you have people that support one kind of student or another kind of student. So just making sure that in our capacity in student government, that we are giving all students the ability to feel like they feel at home, to make sure that they feel like they're welcome, and to make sure that they feel like they are Shockers. It's awful that some students feel like they don't have that ability in that place at our campus. And so just actively telling students that they belong, showing students that they belong, and going through that.
And I think it's very important that we make it very clear that everyone, regardless of their identity, gender identity, or any other like thing that people identify with, people need to understand that every single person has a place at this university, and everyone is welcome in our Shocker family.
Ticket 1.
I think, first off, safety is number one. I think that just with speaking with some members of Spectrum, which is the agency over the LGBTQIA community, safety is number one. The educational piece of what goes on in the LGBTQIA community is another thing, because just through the work that I've done as DEI chair, I know that misnaming, misgendering is could be the last straw for some people. And knowing that educational piece of what is what, as well as not just always going to Spectrum when it comes to LGBTQIA initiatives or tasks or things that are needed.
I would also just like to add that within academic affairs, something that we've really worked on is making sure that people's pronouns are being respected. Because even if you do identify as transgender, but you haven't necessarily gone through the transition yet, you may be starting to use new pronouns and get used to them. And we want to make sure that professors are actually respecting that right.
Ticket 2.
Yeah, so this is actually an issue that's really important to us. One of the things that we did earlier in the election cycle was when Spectrum held their panel on trans identity, and they had a discussion to teach about those identities and learn about that. We were the candidates that were there learning and learning from that and talking to them. And so I think we're already doing that, and we'd only continue doing that as, we'd only continue to support those students as president and vice president, because regardless of what you identify as, regardless of where you are in your life, you do still deserve to have that respect, whether it be in the classroom or in your personal relationships. And so I think that, like has been said multiple times, educating yourself and knowing what those communities need, not based off what you think they need, but based off the conversations you've already had with them and you've already learned from.
We will open the floor to rebuttals in order. Ticket 3. Ticket 1. Ticket 2.
Yeah, and I would also like to harken back into being a transition mentor. One of the things that I am trying to do within the team is making sure that within our name tags that we have those pronouns put in, because when I went to the leadership conference last year and this year, one of the things that honestly astounded me that I never knew was such a huge issue was that they require every name tag produced for faculty, produced for students, produced for anybody, has those pronouns already in there. And I think that's one of the things that we can bring to this campus to be more inclusive and to be proactive in our supporting communities.
All right, and that was the last question for the night. Thank you to the 6 candidates for participating in tonight's debate. Before we begin with closing remarks, don't forget to tune into our final debate next Tuesday, March 28th at 6 p.m. in the RSC 233 and live streamed.
Now on to the closing statements from each ticket. Ticket 1.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and for the people that are watching. It really means the most to us. Like I said, our slogan for our campaign is Level Up. So at the end of the day, we want to level up the campus and we want to make something shake. Thank you.
Ticket 2.
Speaking on behalf of Jonathan and I, we really appreciate you all coming out to listen to our platform, and those of you on the live stream listening on the live stream and taking that time out of your day to do so. It means a lot to us because it lets us know that there are people who care and who want to see the student body improve. We hope that our ideas have resonated with you and that the things we've said have struck a chord with you, but we can't do this alone. It'll take every student, whether we win or not, to make change happen on this campus. And so we would ask that no matter who you're voting for going into this election season, that you make it a priority for yourself to be committed to the student body of Wichita State. So anyway, vote Carter Stanger on April 3rd through 5th.
Ticket 3.
I would just like to also thank everyone for coming out tonight and everyone who's watching online. I know it means a lot for you to actually get involved and be interested in what's going on in the student government. And I'd just like to remind you about how we are going to implement the winning strategy of widening freedom of expression on this campus, implementing sound financial policy that prioritizes the best financing, and then, of course, negotiating better housing contracts. So I encourage you all to vote Barry Harmon.
Thank you all. As you prepare to vote, the election will kick off on Monday, April 3rd. Each fee-paying student will be given a ballot that will be emailed to them from our third-party vendor, Simply Voting. You will need to use your MyWSU login to access the ballot. The ballot will close on Wednesday, April 5th at 5 p.m. sharp. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night. See you next week, and go Shocks.